The story of Musa and Pharaoh begins in a land where power was absolute and cruelty was law. Egypt stood as the strongest empire on earth, ruled by a man who believed he was a god. Pharaoh's word was life or death, and nobody dared question him. Yet destiny was preparing someone who would walk straight into his palace and speak a truth powerful enough to shake his throne. That person was Musa, a man chosen for a mission bigger than fear and bigger than the might of any king. Musa's journey didn't start in comfort. He was born in a time when Pharaoh ordered every newborn boy from Bani Israel to be killed. Soldiers went house to house, tearing families apart. The world of Musa began with danger, but divine protection moved silently. His mother was inspired to place her infant in a wooden basket and let the river carry him. A small object floating in a giant empire seemed helpless, but fate had its own script. That basket moved gently through the Nile until it reached the palace of the very man hunting him. Pharaoh's wife Asiya saw the child and felt mercy instantly. She convinced Pharaoh to spare the child. And just like that, Musa grew up under the roof of the enemy who feared him before he was even born. Years passed and Musa became strong, wise, and aware of his roots. Even though he lived like a prince, his heart remained connected to his people who were forced into slavery and beaten under the Egyptian sun. One day Musa saw an Egyptian guard violently attacking a man from Bani Israel. Musa tried to separate them, but the strike he delivered was strong enough to kill the guard. Panic filled his chest. Word spread quickly and Pharaoh's soldiers began searching for him. Musa fled Egypt in the darkness of night. He walked through deserts, exhausted and alone, until he reached Madian, where his story took a new turn. There, Musa helped two women struggling to provide water for their animals. Their father offered him shelter, food, and eventually a place in his family. Musa finally tasted peace after years of running, but destiny was not finished with him. One night, while traveling through the mountains, Musa saw a light glowing on the horizon. Thinking it was a fire, he walked toward it. Instead, he found himself standing before a divine presence. This was the moment he received his mission. Return to Egypt, stand before Pharaoh, and demand the freedom of his people. It was the greatest task given to a man who once fled that same land in fear. Musa asked for support, and his brother Harun was chosen to stand with him. Together they walked back into the empire that wanted them dead. Imagine the scene, the throne room of Egypt filled with guards, priests, and advisors. Pharaoh sits on a golden seat, surrounded by symbols of power. Into this atmosphere walk two men dressed simply, carrying no weapons, claiming to speak on behalf of the Lord of all worlds. Musa looked Pharaoh in the eyes and delivered the message without trembling. Release Bani Israel and stop your tyranny. For the first time, someone challenged Pharaoh openly. Pharaoh laughed, mocked him, and tried to break him with old accusations. He called Musa a liar, reminded him of the man he accidentally killed, and questioned how a man raised in his palace dared to confront him. Musa answered calmly, explaining that he acted before knowing the truth and now stood with clarity and guidance. Pharaoh, threatened by the confidence of a man he expected to fear him, demanded proof. Musa threw his staff to the ground, and it transformed into a living serpent. He placed his hand to his side, and it shone with a blinding light. Pharaoh was shaken, but instead of accepting the truth, he claimed it was sorcery. To maintain control, he challenged Musa to a public showdown with Egypt's greatest magicians. The day arrived. Thousands gathered under the sun as the magicians threw their ropes and staffs, which appeared to turn into snakes. The crowd gasped. Then Musa cast his staff. His serpent swallowed theirs, leaving the magicians in awe. They realized instantly that this was not magic. They fell to the ground in submission to the truth. Pharaoh erupted in rage. He accused them of conspiring with Musa and threatened torture, but the magicians refused to return to falsehood. Pharaoh's grip on power was cracking. Then began a series of signs that shook Egypt. The Nile turned to blood. Crops were destroyed by locusts. Frogs swarmed cities and storms devastated fields. Each time, Pharaoh promised to release Bani Israel if the signs stopped, and each time he broke his word. Arrogance blinded him more than any darkness ever could. Finally, Musa was commanded to lead his people out of Egypt. They marched into the night, thousands of men, women, and children. When Pharaoh discovered their escape, he assembled his army and chased them. The moment the two groups reached the Red Sea became one of the greatest scenes in history. Musa and his people were trapped. In front of them, endless water. Behind them, Pharaoh's armies closing in. Fear spread among the people, but Musa stood firm. He raised his staff as instructed, and the sea split open into two towering walls of water, forming a dry path. Bani Israel crossed while the wind roared between those walls. Pharaoh saw the path and ordered his army to follow. As soon as they entered, the sea collapsed, drowning the man who once claimed to be a god. The empire built on pride and cruelty fell in moments. Musa and his people watched as the waves settled, ending the chapter of the world's most arrogant king. This story survived thousands of years, not because it was dramatic, but because it carries a message that never grows old. Power collapses when it becomes blind. Truth stands even when it has no army behind it. And courage can rise from the most unexpected places, even from a man who once ran from fear. The journey of Musa shows that no throne, no empire, no tyrant is greater than justice. It shows that even the strongest king on earth can fall when he challenges the one who controls all creation.